The laughter hit first, sharp, brittle, and echoing off the marble like glass shattering in slow motion. Ara Vance was already on her knees. The bowl sat in front of her, porcelain white and filled with black caviar. It wasn't meant for food. It was a decorative piece, usually holding potpourri, but tonight it held something else entirely, her dignity. "Go on," Tristan Devo said, his voice smooth and cruel. "Eat." His phone was already recording. The red light blinked like a warning she hadn't been allowed to heed. Around them, the ballroom had gone still. The music had faded into the background, replaced by the hush of anticipation. Guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos leaned in, champagne flutes paused midair. Some smirked, others whispered. No one intervened. Ara's hands trembled as she stared at the bowl. The scent of the caviar was sharp and oily, turning her stomach. Her knees ached against the cold stone floor, but that pain was nothing compared to the fire in her chest. She didn't speak, she didn't cry, she just breathed, shallow, ragged. "Come on," Tristan said, circling her like a predator. "You're already down there, might as well commit." A woman's voice, Genevieve Devo, Tristan's mother, floated through the air like perfume. "Tristan, darling, don't be too mean, she might actually cry." Laughter again, louder this time, crueler. Ara lowered her head. She didn't want to, every cell in her body screamed against it, but she had no choice, not really, not when her sister's medical bills were stacked on the kitchen table, not when she'd seen what happened to the last maid who dared say no. She leaned forward. The first touch of her lips to the rim of the bowl felt like a branding iron. Her breath caught, her eyes burned. "Oh my God," someone gasped. "She's actually doing it." Phones were out now, dozens of them, recording, capturing, consuming. Tristan crouched beside her, grinning. "Now lick it, like a good girl." The words sliced through her like razors. She obeyed. The salt of the caviar hit her tongue, thick and fishy. She gagged but swallowed, her face flushed with heat, her hands clenched into fists on the floor. "Look at her," a man chuckled. "She's really committed to the role." "She's pathetic," another voice said. "I almost feel bad, almost." Ara didn't look up. She couldn't. She focused on the bowl, on the cold floor, on the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Then, through the blur of tears, she saw him. Marcus. He stood just outside the ballroom, behind the glass doors that led to the terrace. He wasn't pruning roses anymore. He wasn't moving at all. He was filming. His face was stone, his jaw tight, his eyes locked on hers, not with pity but with something else, something fierce, something steady. He was a witness. And in that moment, something shifted. Ara didn't stop. She finished the task. She licked the bowl clean. She gave them their show. But inside, something had broken free. Not her spirit. Her silence. Because now, she wasn't just a maid on her knees. She was a woman with nothing left to lose. And that made her dangerous. Ara didn't remember standing up. Her body moved on instinct, knees aching, face flushed, throat raw from swallowing shame. The laughter still rang in her ears, but it was fading now, replaced by something colder, quieter, the kind of silence that settles after a storm when the wreckage is all that remains. She walked out of the ballroom like a ghost. No one stopped her, no one asked if she was okay. They just went back to their drinks, their gossip, their glittering lives. The bowl sat abandoned on the floor, a grotesque monument to the night's entertainment. Outside, the air was sharp and clean. The scent of roses drifted from the garden, sweet and mocking. Ara sat on the stone steps of the service entrance, her hands scraped and trembling. She stared at them, at the raw skin, the faint bruises forming on her knees. She didn't cry. Not yet. Footsteps crunched on gravel behind her. She didn't turn, she didn't need to. "Miss Vance," Marcus said, his voice low and careful. "May I sit?" She nodded. He sat one step below her, leaving space between them, respectful, quiet. For a long time, they said nothing. Then Marcus spoke. What they did to you in there, his voice was tight, controlled. That wasn't just wrong, that was criminal. Ara let out a bitter breath. A crime in Sterling Point, the Devos own the law here. They might own the town, Marcus said, but they don't own the truth, and they don't own you. He pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward her. I filmed it. Ara's breath caught. The video was clear, brutally clear, Tristan's voice, the laughter, her crawling, her shame. Watching it felt like dying twice. But this time, she wasn't just a victim. She was a witness. I used to be a corporate lawyer, Marcus said softly, before I got tired of defending monsters like them, but I still know the law. What you have there is evidence, assault, emotional abuse, workplace violations. Ara's voice was hollow. And what? We go to Sheriff Brody, he has brunch with Mr. Devo every Sunday. Then we don't go through them, Marcus said. We go over them, state agencies, federal investigators, national media. This isn't just about one party, it's a pattern, a system, and sometimes all it takes is one spark. She looked at him, really looked. Why, she asked, why would you help me? Marcus didn't flinch, because it's right, and because I've spent years watching people like the Devos crush good people, I'm tired of watching. He pulled out a notebook and pens. We start by documenting everything, every threat, every unpaid hour, every insult. We build a timeline, we get statements, we build a case so strong no one can ignore it. Ara nodded slowly. The kitchen staff, she whispered, Maria, Jorge, they've seen things, and Chloe, the maid before me. Tristan accused her of stealing, she didn't, he just misplaced his watch. Marcus scribbled names. Perfect, we'll need testimony, contracts, pay stubs, anything in writing. I have them at home, Ara said, but if we do this, they'll come after us, they'll ruin us. That's why we move quietly, Marcus said. We gather evidence, build a coalition, then we release it all at once, a flood they can't contain. He showed her how to transfer the video, how to encrypt backups, how to protect herself. They sat in the cold, planning a war. Inside, the party raged on. But outside, something stronger was being born. Not revenge. Justice. And Ara, knees bruised, dignity shattered, was no longer just a maid. She was a fighter. Let me know when you're ready for part 2, The Silent Strength, where the tension builds and silence becomes her weapon. The sun rose over Sterling Point like it always did, golden, indifferent, casting long shadows across the estate's manicured lawns. But for Ara Vance, everything had changed. She stood in front of the mirror in her small apartment, smoothing down the collar of her uniform. Her hands were steady, her face was calm, but inside, something new had taken root. Not rage. Resolve. She tucked her phone into her pocket, the encrypted video backed up in 3 places. She'd watched it again that morning, not to relive the pain, but to remember the truth, to remind herself that silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. At 7:00 a.m. sharp, she walked through the kitchen entrance of the Devo estate like she always did. No one looked twice, no one saw the shift. But it was there. In the way she moved. In the way she breathed. In the way she didn't flinch when Tristan passed her in the hallway, smirking like nothing had happened. Morning, he said, voice dripping with mockery. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Silence was her weapon now. In the ballroom, the staff buzzed around preparing for the post-gala brunch. Ara polished silverware with mechanical precision, her mind elsewhere. Every movement was deliberate, every breath measured. Maria, the head cook, glanced at her. You okay? Ara nodded, I'm fine. But Maria saw it, the quiet fire, the shift. Later in the hallway, Marcus passed her a folded note, no words, just a time and place. 9:00 p.m. the old laundromat on the east side. She nodded once. The day passed in a blur of chores and whispers. Tristan laughed loudly at lunch, showing off a new video to his friends. Ara didn't look, she didn't react. But others did. Leo, the valet, watched her with wide eyes. Jorge, the cook, paused mid-stir. Maria's hands trembled as she chopped vegetables. They'd heard. They'd seen. And they were waiting. By evening, the tension in the house was thick. Ara moved through it like smoke, untouchable, unreadable. Her silence was louder than any scream. At 9:00 p.m., she slipped out the back gate and walked to the laundromat. Marcus was already there, seated in the corner booth, his laptop open, his face grim. "You ready?" he asked. Ara sat across from him. "Let's begin." The hum of the old dryers filled the laundromat like background static. It was late, close to 10 p.m., and the place was nearly empty, save for a few forgotten socks and the flickering buzz of a vending machine light. Ara sat in the corner booth, her back to the wall, eyes on the door. She wore a plain hoodie now, her uniform folded neatly in a tote bag beside her. She looked like any other tired woman doing late-night laundry, but inside she was a live wire. Marcus sat across from her, laptop open, a small recorder resting between them. He looked different too, less like a gardener, more like what he used to be. His eyes were sharp, his voice low and steady. "They'll come in one at a time," he said. "No names, no pressure, just stories." Ara nodded. Her fingers tapped a slow rhythm on the table. She wasn't nervous, not anymore. She was ready. The bell above the door jingled. Maria stepped in, wrapped in a long coat, her eyes darting around the room. She spotted Ara and hurried over, sliding into the booth beside her. "I only have 20 minutes, she whispered. "My husband thinks I'm at the store." "It's okay," Ara said gently. "You're safe here." Maria's hands trembled as she pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wrote it down, what happened last week, when Mrs. Devo threw the plate at me." Marcus pressed record. Maria's voice was barely above a whisper, but every word was clear. She said the soup was cold. It was. I checked it twice, but she threw it anyway. It hit the wall. Then she told me if I cried again, she'd make one call and my brother would be deported. Ara reached over and squeezed her hand. "You're not alone anymore," she said. The door opened again. Jorge stepped in, his baseball cap pulled low. He nodded once and took a seat at the next table. Marcus slid the recorder over. "I've been working for them 10 years, Jorge said. "They pay me half of what they report. I saw the payroll files once. They're stealing from us, from the government, from everyone." One by one, they came. Leo, the valet, brought photos, blurry shots of politicians and police chiefs leaving the mansion late at night, envelopes in hand. Chloe, the former maid, joined by phone. Her voice cracked as she described being fired over a lie, blacklisted from every job in town. Each story added another brick to the wall they were building. A wall of truth. A wall that could not be ignored. Marcus typed furiously, cross-referencing names, dates, documents. Ara took notes, her handwriting tight and precise. Every detail mattered, every voice counted. By midnight, the table was covered in papers, printouts, and scribbled timelines. The air was thick with tension, but also something else. "Hope. We need more," Marcus said. "More witnesses, more proof. We are close, but not airtight yet." Ara nodded. "I'll talk to the grounds crew. They see everything, and the laundry staff. They hear things." Maria leaned in. "What about the cameras, the ones in the service halls?" Marcus's eyes lit up. "If we can get footage, anything that shows the abuse, the threats, that's gold." "I know someone," Leo said. "My cousin works for the security company. He might help." They were no longer just employees. They were a movement. A quiet one. A careful one. But powerful. As the meeting wrapped, Marcus handed each person a burner phone. "Use this for anything related to the case. No personal calls, no texts, if they find out what we're doing." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. They all knew. Ara walked home alone, the night air crisp against her skin. Her phone buzzed once, Marcus checking in. She texted back, "Safe, see you tomorrow." She paused at the corner, looking back toward the laundromat. The lights were off now. The booth was empty, but the echoes of what had happened there lingered. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. But it was real. And it was growing. She thought about the silence in the ballroom, the way no one had spoken up, the way they'd all watched. And then she thought about tonight. About Maria's trembling voice. About Jorge's quiet fury. About Leo's photos. They weren't silent anymore. They were speaking. And the world was about to listen. The morning sun cast long shadows across the granite columns of the Sterling Point police station. Ara Vance sat in her beat-up sedan, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Her heart thudded like a drum, steady but loud. Marcus was already there, waiting by the entrance, dressed in a simple blazer and holding a worn leather briefcase. He looked more like a lawyer than a gardener. "You ready for this?" he asked as she stepped out. Ara nodded, smoothing down the collar of her dress. "As I'll ever be." Inside, the station smelled of stale coffee and old paper. A portly sergeant glanced up from his crossword puzzle, eyes flicking over them with mild disinterest. "Help you?" "We're here to file a report," Marcus said. Voice firm, "Assault and workplace harassment, Sterling Point Estate." The sergeant's expression shifted, just slightly, guarded now. "Have a seat, Officer Kent will be with you." The plastic chairs were cold. Ara's leg bounced with nervous energy. 20 minutes passed before a clean-cut officer appeared. His nameplate read Kent. "This way," he said, leading them to a sterile interview room. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The walls were bare. The air smelled like disinfectant and indifference. Kent sat across from them, notepad ready. "Okay, what's this about?" Ara's voice was quiet but steady. "Last night, at a party at the Devo mansion, I was forced to eat food out of a bowl on the floor, like a dog, while their son filmed it, while their guests laughed." Kent's eyebrows lifted. "And you are?" "Ara Vance, I'm a maid." "I see," Kent said, scribbling. "And why exactly did you do this?" "He ordered me to," Ara said. "He threatened my job. His parents watched. They did nothing." Kent leaned back. "That's a serious accusation." Marcus placed his phone on the table. "We have video evidence." Kent played the clip. The room filled with the sound of laughter, commands, humiliation. When it ended, Kent cleared his throat. "Well, Miss Vance, while this is unfortunate, I'm not sure I see a crime here." Ara's voice rose. "Not a crime." Marcus placed a calming hand on her arm. "Officer Kent, what you just saw is assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, hostile work environment, all violations of law." Kent's eyes narrowed. "And you are?" "Marcus Thorne, I'm representing Miss Vance." "You a lawyer?" "I used to be, now I'm the Devo's gardener." Kent smirked. "Then you should know this is a civil matter. You're wasting police time." "This is more than civil," Marcus said. "The video." "The video shows a misunderstanding at a private party," Kent interrupted. "Looks like she was playing along. We've got real crimes to deal with." Ara's fists clenched. "They treated me like garbage. They filmed it for fun." "Lower your voice," Kent warned. The door opened. Sheriff Brody stepped in, tall and imposing. His badge gleamed. His face was unreadable. "Everything okay in here?" "Yes, sir," Kent said, "just wrapping up a complaint." Brody's eyes landed on Ara. "Miss Vance, is it? Funny, Richard Devo called me this morning, said there was some confusion over a party game, said you might be feeling embarrassed." Ara's stomach dropped. They'd already gotten to him. Brody continued, voice smooth. "I understand your pride might be hurt, but filing a false report against a respected family, that's serious. Perjury, defamation, could get ugly." Marcus stood. "Are you threatening my client?" Brody smiled thinly, just giving friendly advice. Sterling Point is a quiet town. We don't like troublemakers. He reached for Marcus's phone. Let's see this famous video. Before Marcus could react, Brody had the phone. He fumbled with it, brow furrowed. Her damn thing seems broken, files not opening, corrupted I guess. He placed it back on the table. Modern tech, can't rely on it. Ara's heart plunged. She checked her own phone. The file was gone. Wiped clean. Well, Brody said, voice falsely cheerful, no evidence, no crime, we're done here. He paused at the door, eyes locking on Ara. And Miss Vance, be very careful where you go from here. Next time you stir trouble, it might not end with friendly advice. The walk out of the station was silent. Outside, the sun was too bright, the air too still. I'm sorry, Marcus said. I should have made more backups. It's not your fault, Ara said. It's the system, they own it. Marcus's jaw clenched. This isn't over, they just showed us how scared they really are. Ara drove home in a daze. When she pulled up to her apartment, her sister was waiting on the curb, a box of belongings at her feet, tears streaming down her face. I got fired, she said. Boss said he got a call from someone important. The retaliation had begun. Later that night, Ara's phone buzzed. An unmarked number. She answered. A distorted voice spoke 2 words before the line went dead. You're next. Ara didn't sleep that night. The threat, you're next, played on a loop in her mind. Her sister's tear-streaked face haunted her, the sheriff's smirk, the wiped video, the silence. But silence wasn't going to save her anymore. At dawn, she drove to the Devo estate, not to work, but to leave. She needed her final paycheck, her personal effects, and then she'd vanish. Sterling Point was no longer safe. She entered through the kitchen. The air was still, the stainless steel counters gleaming in the early light. Her footsteps echoed unnervingly on the marble tiles. She moved quickly, heading for the staff locker room. Inside, she packed her spare uniform, her worn sneakers, and a few personal items. A photo of her and her sister, smiling on a rare beach day, was taped inside the locker. She peeled it off gently and tucked it into her wallet. Then she heard it. Tires crunching on gravel. The kitchen staff was arriving early. Panic surged. She couldn't face their questions, their pity, their fear. Her eyes darted to the heavy wooden door at the far end of the hall, the entrance to the basement, a sprawling labyrinth of storage rooms and utility tunnels. She knew it had another exit, one that led to the far side of the gardens. She slipped through the door and descended the concrete steps. The basement was cool and damp. Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead. She moved quickly past laundry rooms and wine cellars. Then she saw it. A sliver of light under a door. Mr. Devo's private basement office. She'd always been told it was off-limits. But the door was ajar. Every instinct screamed, leave. But something stronger pulled her forward. She pushed the door open. The office was lavish, mahogany desk, leather chairs, Persian rug, a glowing computer screen, files scattered across the desk. Someone had forgotten to log off. Her heart pounded. She stepped inside. One folder lay open, peril records. She scanned the names. The numbers were double what she and the other staff were actually paid. They were reporting inflated salaries to the IRS and pocketing the difference. Tax fraud. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone and began snapping photos. Another file, bank statements. Wire transfers to shell corporations in the Cayman Islands. Letters detailing consulting fees paid to local politicians, including Mayor Thompson, for favorable zoning changes. A spreadsheet listing dozens of undocumented workers on construction sites, paid cash well below minimum wage, their silence bought with threats of deportation. A floorboard creaked upstairs. She froze. She had to hurry. She photographed everything. A ledger labeled Sterling Point Development showed how the Devos used insider info and bribes to buy land from struggling families before a highway announcement. Another file, blackmail against a rival businessman, secret recordings, threats. This wasn't just greed. It was an empire built on corruption, fear, and silence. This was why Sheriff Brody shut them down. This was why everyone was terrified. She put every paper back exactly where she found it. Closed the office door. Fled through the tunnels. She emerged into the pale morning light, blinking like a creature from the dark. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She walked toward the main gates, trying to look casual. Marcus was near the rose garden, shears in hand. He saw her face and dropped everything. They met by the wrought iron fence. Ara, what happened? I've been trying to call. She pulled him out of view of the cameras. I found it, she whispered, showing him the photos. In a secret office, it's worse than we thought. Marcus swiped through the images, his face growing grimmer. This is racketeering, he said. This is RICO-level corruption. They're stealing from everyone, Ara said. Workers, the city, the government, and using the money to buy off anyone who could stop them. A luxury car purred to a stop at the front of the mansion. Mr. Devo was leaving for the day. You need to get out of here, Marcus said urgently, if they even suspect you found this. Ara was already moving toward her car. The phone in her hand felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Terrifying, but also powerful. What do we do? She asked, fumbling for her keys. Marcus's eyes were hard, focused. They've declared war, he said. So we give them one. The small kitchen in Marcus's bungalow had become their war room. Photos from Ara's phone were printed and spread across the table like a crime scene mosaic. Payroll fraud, bribes, blackmail, threats. Every document was a thread in the web the Devos had spun around Sterling Point. Marcus paced slowly, reading aloud from a spreadsheet. They reported Jorge's salary at $62,000. He's been paid $31,000 for the last 3 years. Ara scribbled notes, her handwriting tight and fast. That's tax fraud, wage theft, and intimidation. They weren't just building a case. They were building a reckoning. By noon, they had a list of 20 employees, maids, cooks, valets, landscapers, each with a story, each with a scar. Ara sent encrypted messages to trusted co-workers. Marcus slipped notes to the grounds crew. They arranged secret meetings at a family-owned restaurant miles from Sterling Point. That night, the restaurant's back room filled with quiet voices. Maria arrived first, her eyes wary. They threatened my brother, said one call and he'd be gone. Jorge followed. They docked my pay for speaking Spanish in the kitchen. Leo brought photos, politicians, police chiefs, thick envelopes exchanged in the dark. Marcus recorded everything. Ara took notes. They built timelines, cross-referenced dates, matched names to documents. We speak together, Marcus said. They can't silence all of us. The room nodded. But none of them noticed the man in the corner booths. He pretended to read a newspaper. He paid in cash. He left quickly and drove straight to the Devo estate. The next morning, Ara's phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Check the news. She opened her browser. A local blog had posted a blurry photo of the restaurant meeting. The headline read, Devo staff plotting against Sterling Point's first family. Her stomach dropped. They'd been exposed. She called Marcus. They know. I figured they would, he said, but it's okay, we're ready. He sent her a link. A national journalist, someone Marcus had worked with years ago, had published an exposé. The headline was brutal. Inside Sterling Point, the billion-dollar empire built on fear, fraud, and silence. The article included screenshots of the payroll files, the offshore accounts, the threats, the abuse. It didn't name Ara, but it named the divos. And it was spreading fast. By noon, the story had been picked up by 3 major outlets. By evening, it was trending. Sterling Point scandal. Ara watched the comments flood in. This is sickening. Justice for the workers. Shut them down. She saw her own face in one clip, nailing Humiliated. But the caption read, "She endured, now she leads." Her shame had become a symbol. Her silence had become a roar. Marcus called again. Federal investigators are coming, IRS, Labor Board, FBI. Ara sat on her porch, phone in hand, heart pounding. The empire was cracking. And she had lit the match. The next morning, Sterling Point didn't wake up to birdsong. It woke up to sirens. Black SUVs rolled through the wrought iron gates of the Devo estate, their tinted windows reflecting the rising sun. Agents in dark suits stepped out, badges flashing. IRS, FBI, Department of Labor. Ara watched from a distance, parked near the Rose Gardens. Her phone buzzed with updates, news outlets, social media, encrypted group chats. The story had gone national. Marcus stood beside her, arms crossed, face unreadable. "They're inside," he said, seizing records, interviewing staff, freezing accounts. Ara's breath hitched. "It's really happening." "It's justice," Marcus said, "and it's just beginning." Inside the mansion, chaos reigned. Genevieve Devo screamed at agents, demanding they leave. Tristan sulked in his room, phone confiscated. Richard Devo tried to call the mayor, the sheriff, the governor. No one answered. The walls were closing in. By noon, the estate was surrounded by reporters. Drones buzzed overhead. Headlines scrolled across screens. Sterling Point scandal, billionaire family under federal investigation. Whistleblower video sparks nationwide outrage. Devo empire crumbles amid allegations of abuse and fraud. Ara's face appeared in one clip, kneeling, humiliated. But the caption read, "She endured, now she leads." The shame was no longer hers. It was theirs. At the restaurant where the staff had first gathered, a new meeting took place. This time, it wasn't secret. Cameras rolled, microphones captured every word. Maria spoke first. "They threatened my family, they stole my wages, they treated me like I was disposable." Jorge followed, 10 years of silence, no more. Leo showed his photos, Chloe gave her statement. Ara stood last. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She spoke with quiet strength. "I was humiliated, I was broken, but I wasn't alone, and I wasn't powerless." The room erupted in applause. Online, the clip went viral. Justice for Ara. Sterling Point truth. The Devos issued a statement, denial, deflection, damage control. It didn't work. Their accounts were frozen. Their lawyers overwhelmed. Their allies silent. Sheriff Brody resigned. Mayor Thompson was placed under investigation. The town of Sterling Point, once silent, began to speak. Workers came forward. Families shared stories. The fear began to fade. Ara walked through the estate one last time, head held high. The marble floors didn't feel cold anymore. The chandeliers didn't sparkle with menace. They were just things. And things couldn't hurt her. Marcus met her at the gate. "You did it," he said. "No," Ara replied, "we did." They walked away together. Not as gardener and maid, but as warriors, as truth-tellers, as the spark that burned down a $330 million empire built on silence. The road stretched out like a ribbon of silence beneath Ara's tires. She drove with the windows down, the cool night air brushing her face, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. The town behind her was quiet now, no sirens, no cameras, no whispers, just stillness. She didn't know where she was going. Not yet. But she knew what she was leaving behind. Sterling Point had been her cage, her battlefield, her crucible. Now it was her past. She pulled into a quiet overlook just outside town. The valley below shimmered under the moonlight, peaceful and vast. Ara stepped out of the car, wrapped her arms around herself, and breathed. For the first time in days, she felt the air fill her lungs without resistance. She sat on the hood of her car, phone in hand. The screen lit up with messages, support, gratitude, solidarity, strangers from across the country, workers from other towns, journalists, advocates. Her story had become a spark. And the fire was spreading. Marcus had called earlier. They're freezing assets, filing charges. The Devos won't walk away from this. She thanked him. But she hadn't said goodbye. Not yet. She opened her photo gallery. The image of her kneeling in the ballroom stared back at her. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She stared at it the way a warrior stares at a scar. It wasn't shame anymore. It was proof. Proof that she'd endured. Proof that she'd risen. She scrolled to the next photo, Marcus standing beside her at the press conference, then Maria smiling through tears, Jorge holding his son's hand. They weren't victims. They were voices. She closed the gallery and looked out over the valley. The wind whispered through the trees. She thought about her sister, safe now, working again, smiling more. She thought about the staff who'd once walked on eggshells, now walking tall. She thought about the silence in that ballroom, and how it had been shattered. Ara didn't raise her voice. She didn't throw punches. She stood. She documented. She endured. And in doing so, she taught them something they'd never forget. That dignity isn't given. It's claimed. That justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. She pulled out a small notebook, Marcus's gift, and wrote one final line. Some battles are won without raising your voice, only standing tall. She closed the book and looked into the night. Then, speaking softly to the wind, to the stars, to anyone who'd ever been doubted, dismissed, or degraded, she said, "If you've ever been silenced, this story is yours too. Hit like if you believe in quiet strength." And with that, she drove into the dark. Not running, not hiding, but rising.